Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, today we're starting new chapter, chapter 14, the material world as a great forest of enjoyment. Text number 1 onwards. So it's shloka is little too long. We'll just go to the translation. When King Parikshit asked Shukdev Goswami about the direct meaning of the material forest, Shukdev Goswami replied as follows. My dear king, a man belonging to a mercantile community, Vanik, is always interested in earning money. Sometimes he enters a forest to acquire some cheap commodities like wood and earth and sell them in the city at good prices. Similarly, the conditioned soul, being greedy, enters this material world for some material profit. Gradually, he enters the deepest part of the forest, not really knowing how to get out. Having entered the material world, the pure soul becomes conditioned by the material atmosphere, which is created by the external energy under the control of Lord Vishnu. Thus, the living entity comes under the control of the external energy, Devi Maya. Living independently and bewildered in the forest, he does not attain the association of devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Lord. Once in the bodily conception, he gets different types of bodies, one after the other, under the influence of material energy and impelled by the modes of material nature, Sattagun, Rajagun, and Tamaguna. In this way, the conditioned soul goes sometimes to the heavenly planets, sometimes to the earthly planets, and sometimes to the lower planets and lower species. Thus, he suffers continuously due to different types of bodies. These sufferings and pains are sometimes mixed. Sometimes they are very severe, and sometimes they are not. These bodily conditions are acquired due to the conditioned soul's mental speculation. He uses his mind and 5 senses to acquire knowledge, and these bring about the different bodies in different conditions. Using the senses under the control of the external energy, Maya, the living entity suffers the miserable conditions of material existence. He is actually searching for relief, but he is generally baffled. Although sometimes he is relieved after great difficulty. Struggling for existence in this way, he cannot get the shelter of pure devotees who are like bumblebees engaged in loving service at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So basically, this material world is like a forest and it just gives pain, sufferings, different types of sufferings. But we think we are getting pleasure out of it. And here, Jad Bharat has given the example of a Vanik, a mercantile community person. And he is entering the forest thinking, I'll get something and I can make money off of. And this is what we also think when we try to come to the material world. Oh, I'm going to get some pleasure. I'm going to make some profit out of this. Nothing happens. The most important information in this verse is Hari Guru Charanaravinda Madhukar Anu Padveen. In this material world, the conditioned souls are baffled by their activities and sometimes they're relieved after great difficulty. On the whole, the conditioned soul is never happy. He simply struggles for existence. Actually, his only business is to accept the spiritual master, the Guru, and through him he must accept the lotus feet of the Lord. This is explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. People struggling for existence in the forests or cities of the material world are not actually enjoying life. They're simply suffering different pains and pleasures. generally pains that are always inauspicious. They try to gain release from these pains, but they cannot due to ignorance. For them, it is stated in the Vedas, Tad Vijnanartham. When the living entity is lost in the forest of the material world, in the struggle for existence, his first business is to find a bona fide guru who is always engaged at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After all, if he is at all eager to be relieved of the struggle for existence, he must find a bona fide guru and take instructions at his lotus feet. In this way, he can get out of the struggle. But that business of finding shelter at the lotus feet of a guru and who takes him to the lotus feet of Krishna doesn't happen with everybody. It's very, very rare. That's why it said, Brahmand Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jiva. Otherwise, everybody is suffering. So out of all this, one very fortunate soul gets the opportunity to come to the service of Krishna through a bona fide guru. Since the material world is compared herein to a forest, it may be argued that in Kali Yuga, modern civilization is mainly situated in the cities. A great city, however, is like a great forest. Actually, city life is more dangerous than the life in the forest. If one enters an unknown city without friend or shelter, living in that city is more difficult than living in a forest. There are many big cities all over the surface of the globe, and wherever one looks, he sees a struggle for existence going on 24 hours a day. People rush about in cars going 70 and 80 miles an hour, constantly coming and going, and this sets the scene of the great struggle for existence. One has to rise early in the morning and then travel in that car at breakneck speed. There is always the danger of an accident, and one has to take great care. In his automobile, the living entity is full of anxieties, and his struggle is not at all auspicious. Apart from human beings, other species like cats and dogs are also struggling very hard day and night for existence. Thus, the struggle for existence continues, and the conditioned soul changes from one position to another. For a while, he is a child, but he has to become a boy. From a boy, he has to change into youth, and from youth to manhood and old age. Finally, when the body is no longer workable, he has to accept a new body in a different species. Giving up the body is called death, and accepting another body is called birth. The human form is an opportunity to take shelter of the bona fide spiritual master, and through him, the Supreme Lord. This Krishna consciousness movement has been started to give an opportunity to all the members of human society who are misled by foolish leaders. No one can get out of this struggle for existence, which is full of miseries, without accepting a pure devotee of the Lord. The material attempt changes from one position to another, and no one actually gains relief from the struggle for existence. The only resort is the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master, and through him, the lotus feet of the Lord. So Prabhupada has given some example of the struggle in the cities. And every people just get up early in the morning. Of course, these days, because of lockdown, it's not happening. But other than that, we know how our life was. So busy, struggling, running here and there, trying to earn some money, trying to make some money. People are going crazy about it. One has to rise early in the morning, travel in the car at breakneck speed. Here, at least in America, India, there is so much of traffic. There is no driving at breakneck speed. But People are going crazy, rush about in cars, and that's it. And 24 hours a day, we can see people just rushing around. There is no such thing as night also. Even at night, people are running around. So everybody is struggling hard in the material world to survive somehow or other. So but in case of devotees, of course, devotees also get up early in the morning, but their lifestyle is completely different. Attend Mangala Aarti, then wonderful darshan, then class on Srimad Bhagavatam, clarifying the philosophy, and then Prashadam, and then they go on with their services. Prabhupada has given such a wonderful program for everybody to follow. And Krishna is, what's so difficult for Krishna to take care of his devotees? Many times people believe that, oh, if I don't work, who will maintain me? Krishna is there to maintain. He is maintaining everybody. He is maintaining people who don't believe in him. He is maintaining people who speak against him, like Mayavadis do. He maintains all the animals, plants, insects, birds, beasts, everybody is maintaining. So why won't he maintain those people who have taken shelter of his lotus feet? But it's our problem. We don't want to take shelter. Text 2. In the forest of material existence, the uncontrolled senses are like plunderers. The conditioned soul may earn some money for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. But unfortunately, the uncontrolled senses plunder his money through sense gratification. The senses are plunderers because they make one spend his money unnecessarily for seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, desiring, and willing. In this way, the conditioned soul is obliged to gratify his senses, and thus all his money is spent. This money is actually acquired for the execution of religious principles, but it is taken away by the plundering senses. By following the principles of the Varnashram Dharma, one attains a better position in the material world. One may be rich, learned, beautiful, or high-born. One who has all these assets should know that they are all meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, when a person is misguided, he misuses his high position for sense gratification. Therefore, the uncontrolled senses are considered plunderers, means they rob away. Rob away what? The money. Money is, in this case, whatever the assets a soul has, whether he is rich or learned or beautiful or high-born. But these uncontrolled senses take away all the pious activity bank balance. So they are considered the plunderers. And the Prabhupada said, unfortunately, when a person is misguided, he misuses his high position for sense gratification only. One may very easily use his assets for the further advancement of Krishna consciousness. One should understand that the wealth and opportunity one gets in the material world should not be squandered in sense gratification. They are meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore teaching people to control the mind and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses by a definite process. One should practice a little austerity and not spend money on anything other than the regulative life of devotional service. The senses demand that one see beautiful things. Therefore, money should be spent for decorating the deity in the temple. So one wants to see something beautiful. This is what the eye's desire is. So see the beautiful deity in the temple. Similarly, the tongue has to taste good food, which should be bought and offered to the deity. The nose can be utilized in smelling the flowers offered to the deity, and the hearing can be utilized by listening to the vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, the senses can be regulated and utilized to advance Krishna consciousness. Thus, a good position might not be spoiled by material sense gratification in the form of illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. One spoils an opulent position in the material world by driving cars, spending time in nightclubs, or tasting abominable food in the restaurants. In these ways, the plundering senses take away all the assets that the conditioned soul has acquired with great difficulty. To do pious activity, it takes lots of energy, lots of sacrifice. And because of that pious activity, we get a body and we get a better lifestyle. But people, they just give it up. They just waste it. All the assets. And Prabhupada said, one spoils an opulent position by driving cars, spending time in nightclubs, or tasting abominable food in the restaurants. And this abominable food is basically the meat, different kinds of meat, cooked in different ways and presented in different ways. And they call it very exotic food, delicacies. Because in vegetarian food, they don't find the delicacies, or they don't call it exotic food. And people line up to eat all this abominable food. Of course, nobody will buy if we call it abominable food. So they call it exotic food. And people pay high price just to eat meat so that they can go to hell next life. What kind of logic is that? Text 3. My dear king, family members in this material world go under the names of wife and children, but actually they behave like tigers and jackals. A herdsman tries to protect his sheep to the best of his ability, but the tigers and foxes take them away by force. Similarly, although a miserly man wants to guard his money very carefully, his family members take away all his assets forcibly, even though he is very vigilant. Tigers and jackals. Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very tough. One Hindi poet has sung, Din ka dakini, raat ka bagini, palak palak raho chuse. During the daytime, the wife is compared to a witch, and at night she is compared to a tigress. Her only business is sucking the blood of her husband both day and night. Mataji's, I'm not saying it, I'm just reading whatever Prabhupada has written. But I mean, if we just look at a regular household, this is what happens. And that is why people many times there's no compatibility between husband and wife, and there's so many fights and of course men try to exploit women, women try to exploit men, and it's compared to sucking the blood. It's just ridiculous the way the relationships are these days. During the day, there are household expenditures, and the money earned by the husband at the cost of his blood is taken away. At night, due to sex pleasure, the husband discharges blood in the form of semen. In this way, he is bled by his wife both day and night. Yet he is so crazy that he very carefully maintains her. Similarly, the children are also like tigers, jackals, and foxes. As tigers, jackals, and foxes take away lambs, despite the herdsman's vigilant protection, children take away the father's money, although the father supervises the money himself. Thus, family members may be called wives and children, but actually they are plunderers. So the point is, of course, this is a family, and everybody likes to have family and taking care of the family, maintaining the family. But if one is only engaged in that, only, it doesn't care about spirituality, care about Krishna, care about devotion service, then the life is like this. Text 4. Every year the plowman plows over his grain field, completely uprooting all weeds. Nonetheless, the seed lies there and not being completely burned, again come up with the plants sown in the field. Even after being plowed under, the weeds come up densely. Similarly, the Grihastha ashram family life is a field of fruitive activity. Unless the desire to enjoy family life is completely burnt out, it grows up again and again. Even though camphor may be removed from a pot, the pot nonetheless retains the aroma of camphor. As long as the seed of desires are not destroyed, fruitive activities are not destroyed. Unless one's desires are completely transferred to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the desire for family life continues, even after one has taken sannyas. Sometimes in our society, ISKCON, a person out of sentiment may take sannyas, but because his desires are not burnt completely, he again takes to family life, even at the risk of losing his prestige and disgracing his good name. These strong desires can be burnt out completely when one fully engages in the service of the Lord in devotional service. So these desires are inherent in every living entity's heart. It's there. Some people might have less desires, some people might have more desires. Some people desires have fructified, some people desires are still hidden, but the desires are there. So now it's up to us which desires we want to water, which desires we want to cultivate. Sometimes it's very, very, not sometimes, it's most of the time, it's very, very difficult to just give up the desires. And giving up the desires is not the solution because the inclination is still there. So it's slowly, we have to desire to serve Krishna only. That is why the processes that Srila Prabhupada has given are very important. So that we are dovetailing the same desires in the service of Krishna. There's nothing wrong with having a desire for family life. But having the family in the service of Krishna so that we all can make progress spiritually together, family that chants together, dance together, they advance together. So that way family life is very helpful. And also family life gives a comfort zone, a sense of protection, sense of security, emotional security, physical security, financial security. It gives that security. And just like earlier in the story of Kardam Muni and Mother Devhuti, we studied how a wife acts as a guard for the senses of her husband. So this is a very big service. Just like Prabhupada says, a person out of sentiment may take sannyas, but because his desires are not burnt completely, he again takes to family life. And many times he doesn't even go to family life. He just has illicit relationships because the desire is not gone. Of course, we tend to judge those devotees with the wrong way. But once Tamal Krish Maharaj said in his class, and that there was a devotee in the early times of the movement, and even now, fall down, the so-called fall down will happen because the desires which are sitting in the heart as seed, they just become prarabdha, they just come out. What can you do? So one devotee, he had some problems with women, and he was a brahmachari, but then he fell down, and the news was spread all over. People like to gossip, so people were gossiping about him. And Srila Prabhupada was visiting the temple. The Prabhupada was always moving, and he asked about the devotee, and he heard about all the gossiping that was going on. And he called Tamal Krish Maharaj in his room, and because Tamal Krish Maharaj was Prabhupada's secretary and his personal servant for many, many years. And Prabhupada told him, and very heavily, and this Tamal Krish Maharaj said in his class, that instruction, along with many other instructions, but that instruction I've really kept in my heart that I will not do it. And what Prabhupada said to Tamal Krish Maharaj was, by talking bad about the person who went through some difficult times, by gossiping about him, you have closed all the doors for him to come back. It takes gallons of blood to make somebody a devotee. So at least we should be compassionate. But Prabhupada, you have closed all the doors for him to ever come back. So this is what happens. And if we think Krishna is not watching, if we think by talking bad about or gossiping about somebody, we can get away from that karma, good luck. Not going to happen. It's simple. Like once I was listening to a Shivani Devi, and she said a wonderful thing. She said, if we see somebody having physical problems, means if he's broken bone, or if he cannot walk properly, or he's on the bed and he's sick, we'll run to help him. We'll run to serve him, take care of him. And if somebody's problems emotionally, mentally, we'll also try to. So same thing, what if somebody has problems spiritually? Why we have to gossip about it? We should be trying to help him. And if we cannot help him, at least we pray for his well-being. But somehow we think we don't have those desires. We all have. If we didn't have those desires, we wouldn't be here in the material world. We would be Paramhansa sitting in the Vaikuntha with Radha Krishna serving them. But we all have those desires. And many times when we look at others' faults, it's actually those faulty desires are in our heart. And that's why we look at somebody else as having those faults. Maybe he has, maybe he doesn't, maybe he doesn't have to that much extent that I think he has, because those faults are in me. I'm wearing those glasses and that makes my eyes colored, that makes my vision colored, and I see it accordingly. And on top of it, Krishna is watching everything, and my reaction won't be too far off, too far away. I'll get my reactions very soon. So all we have to do is, we have the problems in our hearts also. We have the material desires. All we have to do, not judge anybody else. Try to help. Try to help. Try to serve. That's why this mention of the word service comes again and again and again. Let's try to serve each other, everybody, without any judgment. And then we'll get the mercy to make progress. Otherwise, just like in this chapter, previous chapter also we read, and in this chapter further on, material world, everybody is struggling, everybody is suffering, every single person. So we just have to help each other, pray to Krishna, serve each other, and then the path will become open up, or it will become easier. So anyway, I'll stop here. Sorry, went over time. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, like when we talk about desire, burning desire, like is alone if we practice, like suppose a lot of desires are there. So how to burn the desire? Because is it something we have to take the shelter of the master, a spiritual master, then the desire will by default burn? Or first we have to try to, like first we have to endeavor to burn the desire and then to take the shelter of the master? Which one is like the proper way?
See, we do our process and taking shelter of the master by following Prabhupada's instructions. We have already taken shelter of Prabhupada. He is our most eminent Shiksha Guru. So we have already taken shelter of his instructions. Diksha, if somebody wants to take, yes, one can, one should, whatever. But it's not just that by taking Diksha, initiation, our desires will be gone. No. We have to work hard. Diksha makes the connection with the parampara formal, and then we take the instructions of a guru seriously. But still, we have to do our process, whether before formal diksha or after formal diksha. We have to do our sadhana bhakti, Vedi sadhana bhakti, very strongly. So it's not like Guru will just give us mercy and that's it. We don't have to do anything now. No way. That's why in English it's called initiation. Initiation means it's the beginning now.
Yes, Guruji, right. Very rightly you mentioned that when we become desireless, then it will be considered as like we have turned to the position of Paramhansa. So that is at all not
So
possible.
desireless as Prabhupada has explained, it means not having no desires. It means only desire for serving Krishna in every way possible. So that's the real desirelessness.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I guess we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.